anti-environment and anti-human.
Senator Henderson.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to begin my contribution with a warning that in this parliament, in this Senate, at a time when so many people are still suffering so significantly from the bushfires, we as parliamentarians have to exercise enormous responsibility in what we say and in how we direct our political advocacy. And I need to make it very clear that bushfire-impacted communities are not interested in self-serving politicking, in toxic political point scoring, in political one-upmanship. So I am disappointed by this MPI today, and it is, I have to say, disgraceful that at a time when the industry is hurting and on their knees as a result of these fires, the Greens are using this motion to push their anti-job agenda. Let me just put a couple of things on the record. First of all, our government's response to this bushfire has been unprecedented, the Black Summer bushfires, a $2 billion National Bushfire Recovery Agency, massive investment in families, in emergency payments, in payments for small business, tourism, mental health, clean-up, infrastructure and, of course, for wildlife. So it's completely false that we haven't responded very quickly in relation to our concern for wildlife. A $50 million initial emergency response to wildlife and habitat recovery, more money, the Minister has made it clear, more money will be committed, and our priorities are caring for and rehabilitating injured wildlife. So I was very disappointed by the remarks of Senator Pratt, who really obviously has no idea what is going on. We are treating this very, very seriously, particularly in relation to the horrendous impact on Australian wildlife. It is very disappointing, and I reiterate the comments of Senator Dunian. The Greens are forest science deniers. There is no evidence whatsoever to suggest or to support the premise that logging makes our forests more fire-prone. In fact, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which advises the UNFCCC on climate matters, has stated unequivocally a sustainable forest management strategy aimed at maintaining or increasing forest carbon stocks while producing an annual sustained yield of timber, fibre or energy from the forest will generate the largest sustained mitigation benefit. So we are seeing the Greens on an ideological bent, and it's also disappointing that in this debate we have not seen Labor or the Greens take issue with the shocking decision in Victoria, Premier Andrews' decision to wipe out the native forest industry by 2030 in Victoria. And it's particularly insensitive at the moment, of course, after East Gippsland has suffered such a brunt of these fires. This decision will wipe out 4,700 jobs and hurt our economy to the tune of nearly $300 million. It shows a complete lack of respect for regional Victoria. It is a disastrous decision. Native forestry, and let me reiterate this, is a sustainable industry. The average harvest area in Victoria over the past 5 years has been 0.04% of the total publicly owned native forest in the state. So I call on the Victorian government to reverse this decision. The people of East Gippsland and North East Victoria are hurting enough. Just imagine, we have seen how Labor has turned its back on coal workers, and now we are seeing the same thing with our forestry workers. It is an absolute disgrace, and to see Labor selling out regional workers in this way is just absolutely untenable. It's also disappointing that the Greens haven't recognised that protecting our fire-damaged landscapes means managing fuel reduction. We saw that, of course, with the 2009 Royal Commission into the Black Saturday bushfires, where the Royal Commission made it very clear that a long-term program of prescribed burning based on an annual rolling target of 5% minimum public land was required, and we have seen a shameful shortfall from that recommendation of the Royal Commission. Last year, only 130,000 hectares of controlled burns occurred in Victoria. about 1/3 of what was recommended. So that's a real lack of respect for these important recommendations and a real misunderstanding of the contribution that fuel hazard
Senator
plays
Henderson,
in
your time has
tackling this very
expired.